My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 36 years old, and until last spring, I thought the ugliest thing my sister could ever take from me was our father's house. I was wrong. Because 3 weeks after Dad's funeral, I sat across from my older sister Vanessa in a lawyer's conference room while she rested one manicured hand on a folder containing a will I had never seen and said, almost gently, "Dad wanted everything to stay with his real family." Real family. 2 words. That was all it took to turn 36 years of birthdays, Christmas mornings, scraped knees, school photographs, hospital visits, and Sunday dinners into a question I had never thought I would have to answer. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. My aunt stared at the table. Vanessa smiled. And then she slid a DNA report across the polished wood toward me. According to the paper, I wasn't my father's biological daughter. According to Vanessa, that meant the house, the investments, Dad's business shares, and the inheritance he had spent a lifetime building belonged to her. Only her. She thought the test ended the argument. She didn't know there was another test. She didn't know why Dad had ordered it 6 months before he died. And she definitely didn't know what was sitting inside a sealed envelope in the lawyer's safe. By the time that envelope was opened, Vanessa wasn't asking whether I belonged in the family anymore. She was asking everyone in the room not to believe what they were reading. Welcome to Calm Verdict Stories, where betrayal gets its evidence, lies meet consequences, and the truth gets the final word. If you've ever had someone use family as a weapon against you, stay with me. Because to understand what happened in that conference room, I have to take you back to the morning my father died. Dad's name was Thomas Bennett. He was 68, stubborn enough to argue with GPS directions, proud enough to repair appliances he absolutely should have replaced, and sentimental enough to keep every birthday card Vanessa and I had ever given him in a shoebox under his bed. He owned a small commercial landscaping company outside Richmond. Nothing glamorous. No private jets. No marble offices. But he had started with 1 truck at 24 and built it into a company with 42 employees, municipal contracts, 3 warehouses, and enough property that people who didn't know our family assumed we had always had money. We hadn't. When I was little, Dad still came home with mud dried into the knees of his work pants. Mom handled payroll at the kitchen table. Vanessa and I stuffed invoices into envelopes for 10 cents each. Dad used to say the business belonged to all of us because all of us had watched it become something. Vanessa was 4 years older than me. Growing up, she was everything I wasn't. Loud where I was quiet. Social where I was careful. Certain where I asked questions. She was student council, homecoming committee, sorority photographs, big plans. I was library cards, spreadsheets, and color-coded calendars. Dad joked that Vanessa could sell ice to Alaska and I could tell Alaska exactly how much ice it had left. For most of our childhood, it worked. Vanessa dreamed. I organized. Dad laughed at both of us. Mom kept the peace. Then Mom died when I was 22. Cancer. 11 months from diagnosis to funeral. And after that, something in our family shifted. Vanessa moved to Atlanta. I stayed. Not because Dad demanded it. He never did. I stayed because the landscaping company's books were a mess, Dad was working too much, and grief had turned simple tasks into mountains for him. I had just finished a degree in accounting. So I started helping 3 afternoons a week. 3 afternoons became full-time. Full-time became controller. By 32, I was the company's chief financial officer. Vanessa called me Dad's little shadow. She did not mean it affectionately. At first, I ignored it. She had her own life. She worked in luxury real estate, married a developer named Eric, divorced him 3 years later, and moved back home with a new collection of designer handbags and a level of resentment I didn't understand. Dad gave her a job in business development. Within 6 months, she was telling everyone that she was the future of Bennett commercial landscaping. I didn't care about titles. I cared about payroll clearing on Friday. I cared about insurance renewals. I cared about whether our city contracts were actually profitable. But Vanessa cared very much about who looked important. And slowly, quietly, Dad started noticing. She charged personal dinners to the company. Then hotel stays. Then a weekend in Miami she described as client development. I reversed the charges. She complained to Dad. Dad told her the company wasn't a personal bank. Vanessa accused me of turning him against her. That became her explanation for everything. If Dad questioned her expenses, Claire did it. If Dad refused to give her a larger office, Claire did it. If Dad asked why she had missed 3 Monday meetings in a row, Claire did it. Eventually, even Dad became tired of defending me. One afternoon he closed his office door and said, "Your sister thinks love is a competition." I looked down at the folder in my lap. "What do you think?" Dad sighed. "I think you stopped competing a long time ago." That conversation happened 8 months before he died. I remember it because 2 days later, Dad started acting strange. Not sick. Secretive. He began taking calls outside. He scheduled meetings without putting them on the company calendar. Twice, I found him sitting at his desk staring at old family photographs. When I asked if something was wrong, he said he was getting older and trying to put things in order. I assumed he meant estate planning. I was partly right. What I didn't know was what had started it. Dad died on a Tuesday morning. A heart attack. No warning. No hospital goodbye. No final conversation. He was pouring coffee in his kitchen at 6:40 a.m. and by 7:15, the paramedics had stopped trying. I got there before Vanessa. I remember standing in the driveway while an ambulance pulled away without its lights on. There are sounds you never forget. For me, it was the click of Dad's front door closing behind the paramedic. So ordinary. So final. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes later in oversized sunglasses even though the sky was gray. She ran toward me. For a second, we were sisters again. No company. No competition. No resentment. Just 2 daughters standing outside the house where our father had raised us. We held each other and cried. I wish I could freeze her there. Because that version of Vanessa disappeared before the funeral flowers had wilted. Dad's funeral was packed. Employees. Clients. Neighbors. People I hadn't seen since high school. Vanessa gave the eulogy. She was good at speeches. She talked about Dad teaching her to ride a bike. About his terrible jokes. About how family was the only thing he valued more than work. I sat in the front pew and believed every word. Afterward, at the house, she moved through the rooms like she was already taking inventory. Dad said I could have Mom's jewelry, remember? He always wanted me to take the dining set. That painting was promised to me. I didn't argue. I didn't care about furniture. I would have traded every object in the house for 1 more hour with Dad complaining that nobody knew how to load a dishwasher correctly. 3 days after the funeral, Dad's attorney called. His name was Martin Shaw. He had handled the company's contracts for nearly 20 years. He asked Vanessa and me to come to his office the following Monday. Vanessa arrived 15 minutes early. That should have warned me. Vanessa was never early for anything unless money was involved. Martin's conference room was cold enough to make me keep my coat on. There was water on the table. Legal pads. 3 folders. Aunt Rebecca, Dad's younger sister, was there too. I hadn't expected her. Neither had Vanessa. What's she doing here? Vanessa asked. Martin adjusted his glasses. Thomas requested that Rebecca attend. Vanessa sat back. Why? We'll get there. That phrase changed the temperature in the room. Martin started with the normal things. Funeral expenses. Outstanding accounts. Personal possessions. Then he opened Dad's will. The house was worth around $680,000. His investment portfolio was a little over $1.4 million. He owned the commercial property where our main office and warehouse sat. And he held 70% of the landscaping company. I owned 10% through an employee purchase agreement. The remaining 20% belonged to a longtime business partner. Dad's will divided his personal estate equally between Vanessa and me. 50-50. The house. Investments. Personal property. Everything. Vanessa didn't react. She sat perfectly still. Too still. Then she reached into her handbag. I'm sorry, she said. Martin stopped reading. Vanessa placed a white envelope on the table. But before we go any further, there's something Claire needs to know. My stomach tightened. She pushed the envelope toward Martin. Inside was a DNA test. My name. Dad's name. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at it. Once. Twice. Then I looked at Vanessa. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shocked. She was watching me. That was the first thing that felt wrong. How did you get this? She folded her hands. Dad had doubts. Aunt Rebecca made a sound under her breath. Martin looked up sharply. Vanessa continued. Mom had an affair. Dad found out years ago. He never wanted to tell Claire. My mouth went dry. No, Vanessa tilted her head. I know this hurts. I looked at Aunt Rebecca. She was pale. Did you know? No, she said immediately. Vanessa slid another document from her folder. This is a revised will. Martin's face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. A tightening around his eyes. Vanessa continued. It was prepared after Dad learned the truth. He wanted his estate to remain with his biological child. I looked at Martin. Is that his will? Martin took the document. He read the first page. Then the second. Then he removed his glasses. Where did you get this? Dad gave it to me. When? About 4 months ago. Why wasn't it filed with my office? He said he didn't trust Claire to know about it. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because when a lie is large enough, sometimes your body reaches for the wrong reaction. Vanessa turned toward me. You have to understand, Claire. Dad loved you. I'm sure he did. But when he learned you weren't actually his, stop. My voice surprised me. Not loud. Just final. Vanessa blinked. I looked at the DNA test again. 36 years. Dad teaching me multiplication at the kitchen table. Dad sitting through my college graduation in a suit he hated. Dad driving 4 hours because my car broke down. Dad calling every Sunday when I traveled for work. Dad handing me Mom's recipe box because, according to him, you're the only one who measures anything. And now a laboratory report said biology had apparently erased all of it. My hands started shaking. Vanessa noticed. She mistook it for surrender. You'll still be taken care of, she said. I'm not heartless. There are sentences that reveal more than the speaker intended. That was one. I looked at Martin. What happens now? He placed the alleged revised will beside Dad's original. Nothing happens today. Vanessa frowned. Excuse me? This document needs verification. It's notarized. So are fraudulent documents. Her face hardened. Are you accusing me of something? No. I'm doing my job. Then Martin looked at me. And Claire, I strongly recommend you don't sign anything regarding the estate until I complete that review. Vanessa laughed. Fine. Verify it. She stood. You'll see. Then she looked at me. And this is the part one remember most clearly. Not the DNA report. Not the will. Her smile. Small. Satisfied. Like she had finally won a race I didn't know we were running. For the next 11 days, I barely slept. I ordered my own DNA test. I knew it wouldn't magically change the first one, but I needed certainty. Dad had already been cremated, so there was no new sample to collect from him. Martin told me not to panic. Aunt Rebecca called every night. Vanessa sent me exactly one text. Please don't make this uglier than it has to be. I stared at that sentence for 5 minutes. Then I deleted it. At work, I kept going. Payroll. Contracts. Quarterly taxes. People still needed answers even if I no longer knew who my father was. Then, on the 9th day, I noticed something. Dad's company reimbursement ledger showed a payment from 6 months earlier to a private medical laboratory. $1,850. The description said executive health screening. That made sense. Except the vendor name didn't. I searched it. They specialized in genetic testing. My heart started beating faster. I called Martin. Did Dad ever tell you he ordered DNA testing? Silence. Then, come to my office tomorrow. That was all he said. The next morning, Aunt Rebecca was already there. So was Vanessa. She looked irritated. I thought we were waiting for document verification. We were, Martin said. And? The revised will is not valid. Vanessa's face barely moved. What? The notary listed on this document did not notarize it. More importantly, the digital file metadata indicates it was created 12 days after Thomas died. The room went silent. Vanessa stood. That's impossible. Martin didn't raise his voice. The document was created on a laptop registered to your business consulting company. She looked at me. Then at Rebecca. Then back at Martin. This is ridiculous. Martin continued. The signature appears to have been copied from an older shareholder document. Vanessa's cheeks flushed. You have no idea what Dad told me. You're right. Which is why we're going to let Thomas tell us himself. He opened the safe behind his desk. And my skin went cold. From inside, he removed a sealed brown envelope. Dad's handwriting was across the front. For Claire and Vanessa. Open together. Vanessa stopped moving. Martin broke the seal. Inside were 3 things. A letter. A laboratory report. And a small digital recorder. Dad had left instructions. Martin pressed play. For 3 seconds, there was only static. Then I heard my father's voice. Older. Tired. But unmistakably Dad. If you're hearing this, then I didn't get the chance to explain it myself. My hand flew to my mouth. Dad continued. 6 months ago, Vanessa came to me with a DNA report claiming Claire was not my biological daughter. I turned toward my sister. She had gone completely white. Dad's voice continued. She said Mom admitted to an affair before she died. I did not believe her. But I also knew something had changed between my daughters, and I needed facts before accusations destroyed this family. My eyes filled. So I ordered independent testing. Martin slid the second report toward us. It listed Dad. It listed me. Probability of paternity, 99.998%. I stopped breathing. Vanessa whispered, "No." Martin said nothing. Dad's recording continued. The result confirmed what I already believed. Claire is my biological daughter. The room blurred. I pressed both hands against the table. Not because biology suddenly made Dad my father again. He had never stopped being my father. But because I realized what this meant. The first DNA report had been false. Vanessa had fabricated it. Dad kept talking. Then I tested Vanessa. She stood so quickly her chair hit the wall. No, Aunt Rebecca whispered her name. Dad's voice stayed steady. Vanessa is not my biological daughter. Nobody moved. Not even Martin. Vanessa shook her head. No. No, that's not possible. Martin slid the third page across the table. Dad's test. Vanessa's result. 0% probability of paternity. She stared at it. Then looked at me like I had done something to her. Dad continued. I don't know the full story. Margaret is gone, and I won't disrespect her memory by pretending I understand choices she can no longer explain. But I know this, Vanessa is my daughter. Her face crumpled. For the first time since Dad died, she looked small. He continued. DNA does not raise a child. DNA does not sit beside a hospital bed. DNA does not teach someone to drive, pay tuition, walk them down an aisle, forgive their mistakes, or answer the phone at 2 in the morning. I was crying now. So was Aunt Rebecca. Vanessa, if you hear this, I need you to understand something. You were my daughter the day I carried you home from the hospital, and you remained my daughter the day I learned we did not share blood. Vanessa sank back into the chair. And Claire, you were my daughter before any laboratory confirmed it. He paused. Then his voice changed. Harder. I am not changing my will based on DNA. Vanessa covered her mouth. I am changing something else. Martin unfolded a second legal document. This one was real. Signed. Witnessed. Filed months before Dad died. Dad had amended the company's succession agreement. My inheritance from his personal estate remained 50%. So did Vanessa's. But control of his company shares was different. Dad had placed them into a trust. I would receive voting control. Vanessa would receive distributions, but no authority to sell, borrow against, or interfere with operations. Dad explained why on the recording. Vanessa brought me a false DNA report to convince me to remove Claire from my estate. I don't know yet whether she created it herself or whether someone helped her. But I know why she did it. Vanessa stood again. Turn it off. Martin didn't. Dad continued. She owes substantial money from failed property investments. She asked me to sell part of the company. I refused. I believe she sees my estate as the solution to decisions she does not want to face. Vanessa was crying now. Real tears. Angry tears. That is not fair. I looked at her. For once, I agreed with the words. None of this was fair. Dad's voice continued. If Vanessa chooses honesty, I hope Claire gives her a chance. If she chooses deception, then let the documents protect what emotion cannot. Then the recording ended. No dramatic music. No final accusation. Just a click. Vanessa looked around the room. You're all acting like I killed him. Nobody answered. I was desperate. She looked at me. Eric left me with debt. The condo investments collapsed. Dad wouldn't help. So you told him I wasn't his daughter? You don't understand. No, I said. I understand exactly. She wiped her face. You had everything. I almost laughed. What did I have? Dad trusted you. The company loved you. Everyone thought you were responsible, Claire, and I was just, she stopped. Just what? The mistake. There it was. Not money. Not inheritance. The wound beneath everything. Vanessa had spent years believing Dad respected me more. And instead of asking why, she decided the only way to become secure was to remove me. She had tried to erase my place in the family. And discovered the DNA truth could have erased hers instead. I looked at the report in front of her. Then at mine. And something became very clear. I could have hurt her. The room had handed me the perfect weapon. All I had to say was, looks like you're the one who isn't his real daughter. She would have remembered that sentence for the rest of her life. Maybe part of me wanted to say it. For 3 seconds, I could feel the words sitting behind my teeth. Then I heard Dad's recording in my head. DNA does not raise a child. So I said something else. You were his daughter. Vanessa looked up. What? You were his daughter. He said it himself. Her face twisted. Don't pity me. I don't. Then what do you want? I looked at the fake report she had used against me. The forged will. The debt she had hidden. The months Dad had spent investigating his own children instead of enjoying the last months of his life. I want you to stop calling cruelty survival. She stared at me. You were in trouble. You could have asked for help. Instead, you tried to convince Dad that I didn't belong. I knew he'd choose you. He didn't choose me. I pointed to the estate documents. He left us both half. That silenced her. Because it was true. Even after discovering Vanessa wasn't biologically his, Dad had not disinherited her. She had tried to steal an inheritance that was already hers. Fear had convinced her that equal wasn't enough. Martin cleared his throat. There is another issue. Vanessa shut her eyes. The forged will had crossed a legal line. So had the falsified DNA report. Martin told her the estate would have to document everything properly. I won't pretend I understood every legal detail that morning. I only understood the expression on my sister's face. For weeks, she had believed evidence was her weapon. Now evidence belonged to everyone. I stood. Vanessa looked up at me. Claire. I picked up Dad's real DNA report. She looked terrified. Not of prison. Not of money. Of me. Of what I might do with the secret she had just learned. I placed the report back on the table. I'm not telling people. She blinked. Why? Because Dad didn't think it made you less his daughter. Neither do I. Her mouth opened. I continued. But what you did to me was real. And I'm not pretending it wasn't. She began crying again. Quietly this time. I left the conference room before she finished. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes. Dad's voice was still in my head. Not the recording. An older memory. I was 12. Vanessa was 16. We were arguing over something stupid in the backyard. Dad stepped between us and said, you two are going to spend half your lives fighting over who got more cake, and one day you'll realize you were both lucky to be invited to the table. At 12, I thought he was talking about dessert. At 36, I finally understood. The months after that meeting were complicated. The estate was settled according to Dad's legitimate documents. I received half. Vanessa received half. The company shares went into the trust exactly as Dad had planned. I became CEO 18 months later. Not because I inherited the title. Because Dad's partners and the board voted. Vanessa sold her condo and used most of her inheritance to settle debt. There was an investigation into the forged documents. Her attorney negotiated the outcome. I won't pretend there were no consequences. There were. But I also won't pretend I celebrated them. For almost 7 months, we didn't speak. Then one Sunday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. Vanessa was standing there. No designer handbag. No dramatic speech. Just my sister holding a cardboard box. Inside were Dad's old birthday cards. Every one we had ever given him. She had found them while clearing the house. We sat on my living room floor and opened them. Cards with glitter. Cards with bad drawings. Cards where Vanessa signed her name 3 times because she liked how it looked. One from me when I was 8 that said, "Dad, you are the best dad in the whole world." I had spelled whole wrong. Dad had kept it for 28 years anyway. Vanessa held that card for a long time. Then she said, "I'm sorry." No explanation. No excuse. Just that. I didn't forgive everything in that moment. Real life doesn't work that way. Apologies don't erase forged documents. DNA tests don't repair trust. Grief doesn't suddenly make people wise. But it was the first honest thing she had said to me in a very long time. So I told her the truth. I miss him too. And for the first time since the funeral, we cried about our father instead of fighting over what he left behind. Vanessa and I are not close the way we were when we were children. Maybe we never will be. Trust comes back slower than money. But we speak. Sometimes. We're learning how to be sisters without Dad standing between us. And I learned something I wish our entire family had understood sooner. An inheritance is not proof that someone loved you more. A blood test is not proof that someone loved you at all. Vanessa had spent years afraid that Dad might choose his real daughter. Then she discovered the truth nobody expected. She was the one who didn't share his DNA. And Dad still chose her. He chose both of us. Because fatherhood had never been sitting inside a laboratory result. It was in 36 years of showing up. It was in scraped knees and tuition checks. In Sunday phone calls. In bad jokes. In a shoebox full of birthday cards. Vanessa tried to use biology to decide who belonged. Dad left behind something stronger. Evidence that belonging had already been decided. That was the real inheritance. Not the house. Not the investments. Not the company. The verdict was simple. Blood can tell you where you came from. It cannot tell you who stayed. If you've ever had someone make you feel like love had to be earned, remember this: family is not proven by what someone can take from you. Sometimes it's proven by what remains when there's nothing left to fight over. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell me in the comments, could you forgive Vanessa after what she did? Subscribe to Calm Verdict Stories for more stories where lies meet evidence, boundaries stay calm, and the truth gets the final word. And I'll see you in the next story.